Welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast, the podcast that gives you immediate actions you can take to start seeing life-shifting results now. Hey everybody, welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast. This is Mark Cardone
and Theron Feidt.
So today we're talking about self-sabotage. One of the things, so this is so funny that this comes up today. I was in a Facebook group with entrepreneurs, and somebody was talking about how money and lack of funding is one of the main reasons why people don't start businesses. And somebody actually posted a study that they did among entrepreneurs and people through the SBA, and I'll have to find it. But it said really the number one reason why people don't start businesses is self-sabotage. They don't do it because in their head, right, it's either too large a task and they never get to it. It's scary and they don't feel confident, so they don't do it. But it's amazing how much this creeps into our daily life.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Not only from my own experience, but working with students, you see the students that have so much potential and they're just not setting themselves up for success. In other words, they're sabotaging themselves in small little ways that they're probably not even aware of. They don't understand. You should listen to our podcast the week before this on self-sabotage, because I think these two podcasts really go together well. I think these two can really help you if you're feeling like, here's the problem. People say, I'm working hard and I don't know why I'm getting ahead. And a victim will say, I'm working hard, so I should be successful.
Right.
That's wrong. There's a lot of people that work hard. I mean, there's a lot of people that don't work hard that think they do, but that's another podcast. Let's say the people that are actually working hard, but they're not getting ahead, they're probably self-sabotaging. They're probably doing the right things at the wrong time. That's very, very common. They're focusing on little things and they're working hard, but they're not focusing on things that are high priority. And if you want to be successful, you want to make more money, you have to do high priority tasks. You have to do things that they're gonna build your value as an employee or as a person, that are worth something. If you're doing something that everybody else can do, what's the value in that? Your business can hire somebody else for a lot cheaper than you to do the same task you're doing. Right. And well, you can say, well, that's not nice. Well, guess what? That's business. So you have to increase your value as an employee.
And it's funny you say that because, like, why do people work on the not high value tasks? Right. And this is such a
I know the answer now.
Such a common thing where, like when we talk to people in real time, it's, well, you just have to do this thing. Like this one thing will completely move the needle for you. And it's like, well, why aren't you doing it? Because I have all these other things I have to do.
Right.
And yes, we all have these things we have to do, but you're doing those things first,
right?
Because you're afraid to get to the other thing.
Yes.
Because it's too big, it's too scary, all the things we just talked about. So that is your form of self-sabotage, right? You're doing everything for everybody else, which is admirable, necessary, things that need to be done. But if there's a 5 or 10 minute thing that's going to change your life, you got time for it. There's a guy on TikTok who always walks around the gym, and I love watching because he walks around the gym to all the guys working out. He does it like once a week, and he asks them how many hours a week they work. And they're 40 hours, 50 hours, 70 hours. And he always ends it with, but you still make time to go to the gym, right? Because we all have all these things. Your situation, as much as you feel like your schedule, your life, all the things you have to do are unique, everyone has similar stuff.
Yeah. And I think, we all do it. We do something and then we justify after the fact. Or we don't do something, more in case of what you just talked about. We don't do something and then we justify why we didn't do it.
Right.
We didn't have time. My kids were busy. And listen, kids make crisis all the time, especially as they're younger. Things come up. You have to do this. Kids in school, they get sick, or there's an event you have to go to. So I totally understand that, but you can still get things done. It's all about your priority and what you have to just do things, push yourself.
I had the greatest conversation over coffee with somebody that we might actually have on the podcast in a few weeks. But He said, take your excuses that you make about your kids and your spouse and all the people who are stopping you from achieving what you want and say it to them
Ooh.
and picture how they would feel. Picture how,
Ooh,
like,
that's
really
really good.
picture, oh my God, like picture how your kids would feel if you said, listen, I'm unhappy with my body and I'm out of shape and it's really kind of your fault,
Right.
and put yourself there and like you want self-sabotage to end on that, boom, done. Right.
Yeah.
Harsh,
That is
harsh,
hard. Don't
harsh.
do that. By the way, don't do that.
This is not an action step.
No, no,
But
don't do that.
but in your head do
But in your
it,
head,
right?
do it.
And
Yeah.
see how
Yeah.
that feels. Because man, that'll change your perspective like right quick.
Yeah, disclaimer. Actually don't physically and actually do that, right?
Disclaimer,
It's just in your head. It's just a it's just
disclaimer,
an
do not play
exercise,
dumb.
internal dialogue. But on a serious note, there are parents that actually do that.
There sure are.
Yeah. Which is super sad.
Yeah,
You talk about a child, they didn't ask to be in this world.
right.
You made them
Yeah,
come into this world. You created them. And now you're making them the excuse for your failure and you being a
yeah,
loser. What a piece of garbage that person is.
yeah,
There. Now you
yeah.
know how I feel about that.
100%. 100%.
And
So,
I would tell it
so
to their face too. So,
absolutely. So I mean, so let's get into some action steps because
all
I
right.
think
Don't get me going
such a
on when you're dealing
pervasive
with kids.
thing that we all do, So I mean, I think this is super important. But so action step number one, set yourself up for success with small intentional changes, right? And
Right.
this addresses the issue of people making things too big in their head, right?
Yeah.
Starting a business is hard, making a phone call is
Mm-hmm.
easy,
Yep.
and one of the greatest tips I heard over the past 3 weeks is if you want to start making progress on things, stop assigning a difficulty to it. Like
Right.
that's one of the best
Yeah.
things I think you can do because in your head you're going to go, "This is impossible,"
Yeah.
right? But it's only as hard as it's going to be,
Yeah. Yeah.
And if it's too much, we can always do this step and break it down into a smaller, actionable chunk.
Yeah. Something that's been around, I think it was probably from Brian Tracy, How do you eat an elephant, or Zig Ziglar, one of them,
Yeah.
one bite at a time. I mean, that's funny and all that. I don't like that. I don't like that as well.
Hmm.
I think you just break it down. And I love what you said there. I think that's profound, where don't assign difficulty to it.
It's
I mean, that really hit me when you said that. I'm like, oh, wow, that's, hopefully that's what I do already. But hearing that and actually doing that as an action step, I
yeah.
think is a key to taking action for sure.
I saw so many little places in my life where I assign difficulty to things and I
Yeah,
don't do them because I go, oh, that's going to be a huge task.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Writing a book, doing all these things.
Right.
Like these
Yeah,
are
yeah,
big, complicated things,
yeah.
but they can all be broken down into easier steps. I mean, Ramit Sethi in I'll Teach You How to Be Rich when he's talking about
Hmm.
habit building and he's talking about flossing your teeth,
Hmm.
which is just like such a great habit, but
Yep.
in the morning when we're 5 minutes late for work, we're not thinking I have an extra,
Right.
time. He's just floss one tooth. Just commit to flossing one tooth a day.
Right.
And
Yeah.
if you're not flossing, right, you're going to get more benefit from doing one
Hmm.
tooth a day every month than not doing it at all. Right.
Yeah.
But once you do that one tooth, you're going to see momentum and you're going to start to
Hmm.
move. I think that's a really good example of this.
Yeah. Some other things that I was just reading our notes when we were making the podcast is schedule it too. So
Yeah.
schedule the action. Make time for it. So if something's going to take you 15 minutes, the problem with that is only 15 minutes. So you don't usually schedule it. You're like, when I get to it, I'll get to it. And then what tends to happen with many people is it's the end of the day and it's like, oh, I never did that thing because it was
Yeah.
only going to take me 15 minutes. So I didn't think it was a big deal. And then it put off another day and another day, another day. Actually schedule it, put it on your calendar, make a reminder. So that way, when it pops up, you just get it done, make it happen. It could be a phone call. It could be looking through your finances for half an hour,
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, something, but schedule it in your day.
I love that you said that because I think part of that scheduling is the preparation part of it, right? And
Yeah.
I have had people show up to call hour, right? Like cold call hour with a phone on 3% battery.
Oh my
What I mean? So
God.
I mean, Like if you show up for an hour of phone calls with 3% battery on your phone, I've seen people, I tell everybody if they want to start seeing results in their fitness, I say just start walking in the morning,
Yeah.
treadmill, 2 miles an hour, whatever, small step. But then they go to bed with their workout clothes, 30 feet, in three different rooms under a lock and cabinet, and they're snuggling their phone alarm clock as they sleep
Yeah.
so they can hit the snooze button faster. Prepare your environment for success. Like this
Right.
is when the small steps,
Mm-hmm.
even the small steps won't happen
Right.
if your phone battery's at 2% when you have to make a couple of phone calls, right?
Yeah.
Plug
Yeah.
it in, get ready.
Yeah.
So
Right.
that's just
Yep.
rant over.
Yes, that was good rant. Okay. Step number two is challenge and reframe your inner dialogue. So we talked about this in last week's podcast. We had a part of that inner dialogue in there, and this is about obviously what you're thinking about, but remember questions, that empowering questions like I talked about last week. This is very, very important. So what's your inner dialogue saying? Are you already defeated in your head by what you're thinking and what you're feeling before you even get started?
Yeah.
That's you're sabotaging then, so you have to
Yeah.
really take control of your inner thoughts.
And I, this is all imposter syndrome to me, right? This is the thoughts. I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough to teach this thing.
Yeah.
And one of the best things that I like to do is I always like to ask myself, is there somebody less able than me
Hmm.
doing it right now?
Right.
And without a care in the world that they're not at the level I have expectation to be at, right?
Yeah.
This is like you think martial arts, right?
Yeah.
Can we have third, fourth, fifth, sixth degree black belt instructors teaching karate,
Yeah.
but do we see situations where like a red belt will step up and help an
Yeah.
orange belt with something because
Hmm.
we have that family and the people who are confident, and of course, does the red belt know it as well as you know it? No,
Hmm.
but can they help a yellow belt with something simple, right? That
Right.
they've done for years and years.
Hmm.
So I think, being able to adopt that mentality that there's people out there that are like literally
Hmm.
living the dream you want to live, who have half the capability that you do,
Right.
and then finding proof of that, which is very easy to find today.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. That's a great tip. Great tip. And then the other one in here is reframing
Hmm.
your thoughts, right? Reframing. Um, can you think it in a different way, ask a better question, like I mentioned, the empowering questions. But reframing yourself, reframing your mind, your thoughts in your mind, so that way the outcome is what you desire. Because if you're thinking, I can't do this, I can't do this, is too hard, all of those thoughts aren't serving you, they're sabotaging you. So you
Hmm.
have to now, I'm not saying it's easy, especially if you're in a habit of this, but that's one of the things is you have to reframe your mind. You have to replace the negative with a positive thought. And that's the great thing about our mind is we can't think of a positive and a negative at the same time. It's either one or the other. So if you flood your mind with positive thoughts, it's just like putting water in a cup. It
Yeah.
starts to overflow, and then now it has nice clean water in the cup. And
You,
that's the same thing with positive thoughts.
and I remember saying things coming up through black belt training, like every day in every way, I'm getting better and better, right?
Yes. Yep.
The past doesn't equal the future. The
Right.
things that, and I mean, to that one specifically, I was sitting down with somebody going over their goals, 4 months ago at the beginning of January. And I remember I said, well, why is this goal this? And they said, well, just because this is more than I've ever done in the past, right? And I said, well, it's good, but why are you basing your future goals on what you did last? I mean,
Right.
the things don't necessarily match. We don't,
Yeah.
we want to set aspirational goals and things that are going to
Hmm.
motivate us, not things that are just meh, kind of as good as
Yep.
what I've done before or what I
Right.
haven't done before, even
Hmm.
worse, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um, so I think reframing it's a great tip.
Yeah, and I think part of that too is being around people that you want to inspire to be like in certain areas. You're not going to find somebody that is 100% of what you're looking for. I mean,
Mhm.
hopefully not, because that's a little creepy. But you're going to have, hopefully, you have friends and associates that are a little bit better in this one area or maybe two areas of their life. that by talking to them, by being around them, by just being there,
Yeah.
a lot of that's going to rub off. And we know that. Like if you want to increase your net worth, you don't hang around with poor people.
Right.
You should be around people that are worth way more than you. If you
Yeah.
can do it, that's how you become more wealthy, because you're going to get their ideas, you're going to get their inspiration. They usually have a higher level of thinking. If you want to be successful in the martial arts and you want to be successful in the fight game, you don't spar white belts, right? You work out with people that are better than you so you can get better. So it's a simple concept, and people don't think, okay, well, that's how I get better at sparring. Duh, of course I got to spar somebody that's better. Well, how do you get more successful in a business? You get around people, other business owners that are more successful than you.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same idea. So it's not like a brilliant concept, but
No.
I think it's something so simple that people don't realize
Yeah.
it's the same thing.
100%.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, getting into number three, I love so much because it's about practicing self-compassion and building
Mm-hmm.
resilience. And this, this is your typical, people's the poster, right? People's version of how success, how weight loss, how sales, how success in anything goes. And they see that straight line that goes up, right?
Yep.
Or goes down or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a graph, and time is, the x-axis, and progress is the y, and it's a straight line of progress all the time. And it's not realistic,
Yeah.
right? If you're trying to lose weight, there's going to be weeks when you don't. There's going to be
Right.
weeks when you gain weight.
Mm-hmm.
If you're trying to, run a business, there's going to be years, quarters when you win
Right.
magnificently,
Right.
and then there's going to be years and quarters when you really don't.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? So I think being able to acknowledge those setbacks as just part of the journey,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it happens, and
Right.
it's not your fault. You don't have to
Right.
judge yourself.
Right.
Or can you look for improvement? 100%.
For sure. Yeah.
Kaizen, right? We should always be looking for improvement, but you have to be able to look at things and not, point that finger at yourself and say, "Oh, I'm terrible. Here we go."
Right. Exactly. Yep. Yep. And in here, some of the thoughts I was thinking is, how would you talk to a friend, giving
Yeah,
them advice, and that's a good flip of the script. Would you give them, what advice would you give them? Hopefully,
yeah,
if it's a good friend, you're going to be compassionate, but you're going to be straight with them too. Um, and that's how you should talk to yourself. I
yeah,
think you run into people, and we've dealt with so many tens of thousands of people, and training them for black belt especially, is you get some students. You got three basic categories. You got the ones that think they're better than they are. You have the ones that don't think they're as good, but they're way better than they are. And then you have the ones that are realistic,
hmm,
that pretty much their eye meets your eye. Okay.
yep,
Well, that's where I want all my students, in that third category, right in the middle, where how I see them is how they see themselves, but they also can see their potential, as can I. Now, the students that see themselves better than they are, that's not good, because then they're not going to do things, and they think
right,
they're already there. So they're going to be lazy, and they're going to maybe a little arrogant, and they need to be deframed, let's say. The ones that don't think they're as good, they're not too bad to work with, but you do need to train them differently. And this is kind of what we're talking about, with maybe you're that type of person in certain instances, that you're telling yourself you're not good. You're telling yourself it could be better. And
yeah,
it's okay to be hard on yourself to a certain degree, because some people are too easy on themselves,
yeah,
but you have to have a balance. I think that middle road of balance, that, okay, yes, I could have done better here, but I did my best for today. I was a little tired, I was a little under the weather, something was trying to get a hold of me, and I still worked out, which is a
yeah,
which is a victory. It just wasn't my best workout. It was only a 7 out of 10.
hmm,
Well, it's better than a 0. 7 out of 10 is better. And now, if you're always getting sevens, then there's an issue. But if it's only for one day out of a whole month, or even 1 or 2 days out of a whole month, that's not a big deal.
right,
That's not a big deal. So I think how you're seeing yourself, and I think one of the good tests for this is get feedback from others.
yeah,
In the martial arts is easy. You just talk to your instructor. They'll tell you how it is. They can see you differently, how you can see yourself. If we're talking about something other than martial arts, that's where you get mentors. That's where you get people you can trust. That's
yeah,
where you align yourself with other business owners that are better than you that can give you that feedback.
100%. And and to cap this off, I mean, I think it's important, exactly what you were saying. If you have a couple bad workouts, it's not, the end of the world, right?
Right.
It happens. But focusing on progress and not perfection. I mean,
Yep.
really, we've talked about this on the podcast, and I love this so much, but it's looking backwards at where you came from, not forward to where you're going. It's
Yep.
important for us to keep the goal in our mind,
Yep.
but sometimes when the goal is so far out, it
Yeah.
can feel like we're making zero progress, right? If
Yeah.
the goal is working out 5 days a week and you only did two, but last week you did zero.
Yeah.
Two's progress. It's not what you
Yep.
wanted, but it's progress.
Right.
Next week, make it three. The
Yep.
next week, make it four.
Right.
But I think keeping that, that not only focusing on the progress, but seeing the progress you're making
Mm-hmm.
is a good step for this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love it. Okay, so let's review.
Yeah.
Okay, so step one is set yourself up for success by doing small intentional things. Make sure you're setting yourself up so that way when you do have the opportunity that you're doing it. And then think of those small changes that are going to lead you to the bigger goal. Especially if it's a big goal you're going for, chunk it down.
Absolutely. Action step two, challenge and reframe your inner dialogue. What are you talking to yourself about, right? Is there somebody in the world doing what you want to do that's less able? Are you doubting yourself? But really, talk to yourself like you're a friend. Encourage yourself.
Right. And the last one is practice self-compassion and build resiliency. This I love, especially the resilient part.
Yeah.
We need to be stronger. We need to be mentally stronger, physically stronger, so we can take on more for ourselves and our family. And, acknowledging setbacks, but also reframing yourself so that way you might give yourself a break every once in a while. But then you push it through. And that's where that balance comes in.
Absolutely. This is a great podcast on
Yeah.
self-sabotage. And this wraps up our episode of the Achieve Results Now podcast. Please share this with somebody. Everybody does this. So share this episode with somebody who would learn from it. And we will see you on the next episode.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening. Hop over to our website at www.achieveresultsnow.com to get your free copy of our book, Ignite Results, for specific daily actions to help you achieve results now. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Achieve Results Now. Thanks for listening, commenting, and subscribing. Now get out there and achieve results now.